My name is Nora, and I'm a 41-year-old single mother. My daughter, Aurora, just turned 11 this year and is studying hard every day to get into a good middle school in 2 years. It's hard to believe, but we're enjoying peaceful days now, a far cry from the trials and tribulations I went through a decade ago. I worked as a tax accountant at the first company I was assigned to. The person in charge of accounting was my ex-husband, Jasper. We decided to get married when he was 29 and I was 27. Jasper had lost his father a few years prior and was living with his mother. "I just want to confirm, if we get married, will we be living with your mother?" I asked. "No," he replied. "My mom said she wants to live comfortably on her own." "Really?" I said. "Well, she did say she'd like to live close by once we're married." I remember feeling relieved as I wanted to avoid living with my mother-in-law if at all possible. Since Jasper was an only son, of course, I wanted him nearby. But living together wouldn't give you any privacy, right? "I'd be happy if you could just live close by," his mother said. "I agree with the idea of maintaining each other's privacy," I responded. "It would also be reassuring to know you're close enough to rush over if needed." "I'm not that old yet, so I'll try not to be a burden," Jasper added. His mother assured us. At the time, I thought I could manage well with a mother-in-law like this. However, within a month of getting married, my mother-in-law started barging into our private space without any qualms. It started with crab. Some delicious crab arrived from a relative. "I'll bring it over so we can have crab dishes together tonight," she said. There was no way to refuse when she put it like that. Plus, my mother-in-law was a big drinker. She asked us to have beer, wine, and whiskey ready too. Well, I figured an occasional family meal like this might be necessary now that we were family, but I was too naive. After over 3 hours of eating and drinking, my mother-in-law got dead drunk and passed out on the living room couch. The next morning, she had a hearty breakfast before going home. After that, she kept finding similar excuses to come over frequently. Then she got even more brazen, calling with requests like this. "Nora, have you decided on dinner yet?" "Yes, I was just about to start making it." "Perfect timing! I was out with friends today and just got home. I'm starving. I didn't prepare anything, so is it okay if I come over and have dinner with you tonight? But I only bought enough ingredients for 2 people." "No problem. I don't eat that much, so just share a little with me." My mother-in-law's sudden invasions continued after that. She would contact me as if she had timed it exactly to when I was about to start making dinner, forcefully come over, stay late into the night, and then sleep over. It was an endless cycle. I had no time to relax. "Hey, can't you talk to your mother and ask her to hold back a little?" I asked my husband. "My mom just wants to get along with you," he said. "But didn't she say at first that she would respect our privacy, that she would keep an appropriate distance?" "Okay, I got it. I'll talk to her nicely." But I still kept getting calls from my mother-in-law with no regard for us. I realized that if I didn't speak up and just put up with it, she would only take further advantage. Jasper was unreliable. I decided I needed to refuse her myself. "Nora, is it okay if I impose on you again today?" she asked. "I'm sorry, but that won't work today. Jasper and I will be coming to your house," I responded. "That's no good. Even if you come over, I won't be able to serve you anything decent." "We don't mind at all. Please let us eat a meal you've cooked once in a while." "You've got some nerve telling me to cook in your position as the daughter-in-law." "My position is that? How do you feel? You think that as the daughter-in-law, I should just do as I'm told?" "No, that's not what I meant. But anyway, please don't come over. Remember how we promised to keep an appropriate distance while maintaining a good relationship? In that case, please refrain from coming to our house from now on, too." I worried I might have gone a bit too far, but I felt that if I didn't make myself clear, she would only escalate her intrusiveness. After I refused my mother-in-law's visits, she lay low for a while. Sometime later, I found out I was pregnant. When I entered my 9th month, I took maternity leave and temporarily went back to my parents' home. With my mother's help, I was able to spend my days there peacefully. Then, a week before my due date, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. We named her Aurora. The day after giving birth, my mother-in-law showed up at the hospital. "I thought of some good names," she said, handing me a piece of paper. It had a list of 10 names. "Mom, I feel bad since you went to the trouble, but we already decided on a name," I said. Jasper told her, "What? Why would you do that without consulting me? This child is my granddaughter. I'm going to be her naming parent. Please stop." "We already decided," I said. "You haven't submitted the paperwork yet, right? Then there's still time, I know. I'll go take care of it," she said. My mother, who had been silently listening to the exchange with my mother-in-law, chided her in a low voice. "The baby that was born is Jasper and Nora's child. Parents name their children. We grandmothers have no such right. But I was so looking forward to it. Come on, Jasper, don't take this joy away from an old woman." "Jasper and Nora, we're looking forward to this even more than you, don't you think? As a parent yourself, I think you should understand how they feel." At a loss for words in the face of my mother's scolding, my mother-in-law glared at her resentfully and left the hospital room. Jasper hurried out after her. "Mom, thank you. I feel better after you clearly expressed that," I said. "Dealing with that mother-in-law must be hard on you, but you'll be able to rest easy at our home for a while, right?" "I'm planning to stay for about a month," I said. "Got it. Make sure you fully recover during that time." However, on the very day I was being discharged, who should have shown up to get me but Jasper and my mother-in-law together? "Everything is ready to welcome Aurora. Let's go home, Nora," she declared. "Wait a minute. I thought I told you that I would be having my daughter recuperate at my family's home for a month," I said. "Is your parents' house her and Aurora's home?" "I don't think so. Jasper has been waiting all this time for them to come back too, but she still hasn't recovered physically," my mother pointed out. "I live nearby, so I will take good care of her. Now hurry up and get ready to go, Nora. I won't budge from here until you do." Up until then, Jasper had been awkwardly watching the exchange between my mother and his, but now he spoke up. "I want Nora and Aurora to come home soon too, but I won't be able to do any housework yet since I'm still in pain. I'll help out as much as I can, and my mom said she'll pitch in for a while too." "Nora, you've been imposing on your mother up until giving birth, right? Do you intend to burden her even more? Isn't that just selfishness on your part?" With my mother-in-law arguing to that extent, I felt I couldn't trouble my mother any further. "Of course," my mom said. "Don't hold back on my account." But I knew that if I insisted on staying with my parents at this point, there was no telling what my mother-in-law might say later, half out of spite. I decided to return to my own home rather than recuperate at my parents' house. However, I quickly realized this was a mistake. The very next day, my mother-in-law showed up as if she had been waiting for this moment. "Aurora, Grandma's going to hold you now," she said. "Please don't wake her. She just fell asleep," I pleaded. "It's fine. I raised Jasper, you know," she said, picking up Aurora on her own. Sure enough, Aurora started wailing loudly. No matter how much my mother-in-law tried to soothe her, she wouldn't stop crying. My, isn't this child a bit too nervous and high-strung?" she tutted. "That's why I asked you not to wake her. And here I came over thinking I'd lend you a hand. You sure have a harsh way of talking." I had to take Aurora back from her and calm her down myself. "Once again, if you're here to lend a hand, could I ask you to do the shopping and prepare meals?" "I'm not in any shape to go out yet," I said. "Prepare meals? That's not my forte, so I'll have to pass. I'd rather help with childcare instead," she replied. "Pass? I'll handle the childcare, so please take care of the other chores." "Oh my, Nora, do you plan to monopolize Aurora when she wakes up?" "I'll hold her. You can do the housework in the meantime. That's what I came here for after all." "In that case, could you put Aurora to sleep now?" I asked. "But she's crying. Do you think she wants milk?" "I just fed her a little while ago." "Then it must be her diaper. Hurry up and change it." "I changed her diaper too. Is that so?" "Well, then there's nothing I can do." Perhaps realizing there was nothing for her to do, my mother-in-law said, "I'll come to check on you again tomorrow," and promptly left. "Please don't come anymore. Never come again." All I could do was grumble to myself. After that, my mother-in-law came to our house almost every day, but far from lending a hand, she would just wake Aurora up from her sleep and put her in a bad mood. To top it off, she would eat the meals I prepared and leave without cleaning up. Jasper, whom I had been counting on, would come home from work, look at Aurora's face, and just grin, saying, "She's so cute." When I asked him to help with chores, he did a half-hearted job that only created more work for me to redo. I couldn't rely on anyone anymore. I guess I had no choice but to do my best on my own. Exhausted from lack of sleep after giving birth, I was on the verge of collapse. About a month after Aurora was born, on a day off, Jasper, who had woken up early for once, called out to me, "I'll watch Aurora, so why don't you get some sleep? You're tired, aren't you?" "I'd be grateful if you could, but will you be okay on your own?" I asked. "My mom will be here soon, so it'll be fine. Just leave it to me." I had my doubts, but I hadn't been able to get much sleep, so I decided to rest, as he suggested. About an hour later, I heard Aurora crying. Either Jasper or my mother-in-law should have been soothing her. I tried to go back to sleep, but Aurora's crying didn't stop. It seemed to be getting more intense. I hurriedly jumped out of bed and headed to Aurora. Jasper was nowhere to be seen, and my mother-in-law was standing there with a sour look on her face, leaving Aurora unattended in her crib. "Where's Jasper?" I asked. "He went out. Said he got a call from a friend or something." "So what are you doing?" "What do you mean?" "Aurora wouldn't stop crying no matter what, so I put her back in the crib." "Is it her diaper? Did you check her diaper?" "Are you telling me to do that? I've forgotten how to change diapers since you're up. Hurry up and change her." I was an idiot for leaving it to them. As I changed Aurora's diaper and soothed her, she began to fall asleep comfortably in my arms. "Oh, her mood improved. Here, hand her over," my mother-in-law said, taking Aurora from me. And so began another round of her holding the baby. Thinking it was pointless to say anything more, I started washing the dishes Jasper and his mother had likely used. Just then, Aurora started fussing, and my mother-in-law frantically tried to appease her. "It's Grandma, Aurora, it's Grandma," she repeated. But Aurora wouldn't stop crying, and when she started rocking her vigorously, Aurora's cries became even more intense. I tried to take over, but then something unbelievable happened. "Why are you always crying? Jasper says your night crying is annoying too. Shut up." My mother-in-law started getting genuinely angry at the 1-month-old baby. Then, while yelling, "Shut up, shut up," she began hitting Aurora on the head. "What are you doing? Stop it," I screamed. "I'm punishing her because she won't listen. Look, she's gotten quiet now." I looked at Aurora and saw that her head and limbs had gone limp. She had probably lost consciousness. I snatched Aurora away from my mother-in-law. "What the hell are you trying to kill Aurora? If anything happens to her, I won't forgive you." I immediately called for an ambulance. Seeing Aurora's lifeless form, my mother-in-law seemed to realize the gravity of the situation. I got in the ambulance with Aurora, and we headed to the hospital. Aurora was hurriedly taken into the examination room. Then I heard my mother-in-law telling the nurses something. I turned my back for a second and she fell out of the crib. "Please help her. She fell out of the crib." "Why are you lying like that? You hit her." But now wasn't the time to be saying such things. About an hour later, the doctor came in. "Your daughter has shaken baby syndrome. She vomited afterward and had a seizure, so there's no doubt." "And has she regained consciousness?" I asked. "There doesn't seem to be any impairment of consciousness. Her EEG was normal too. She's in a state of normal sleep now. If she rests a bit, you should be able to take her home today without issue." "Oh, thank goodness. Just to confirm, though, you said she fell out of the crib, but is that true?" "What? What do you mean?" "Shaken baby syndrome doesn't occur from something like falling out of a crib. It only presents if the head is violently shaken or struck hard." "Oh, that was this mother's fault then. I saw her hitting Aurora on the head because she wouldn't stop crying." My mother-in-law suddenly interjected. "Is that true, doctor?" "What? No, I did no such thing. The one who did it was—" "Stop making excuses. Don't take shaken baby syndrome lightly. You were fortunate it was mild this time, but in severe cases it can cause cerebral hemorrhage, vision impairment, and other issues," the doctor warned. I told her hitting a baby is not something a mother should do, but this person— "Mother-in-law, please don't lie. The one who hit her head was—" "Stop with the excuses." While we were arguing, nurses who had been told something by the doctor started moving busily. Then the doctor said, "I'd like to hear more details, so could you please come with me?" I was taken to a narrow room. I was left there for a while, but eventually the police arrived. They explained that what happened constituted assault. "I didn't do anything. The one who hit my daughter's head was my mother-in-law," I told them. "I see. We'll need to hear the full story at the station, so would you please come with us?" I desperately tried to stay calm. I felt that if I made a scene here, the criticism would be directed at me. I asked the nurses to handle things and followed the police. At the station, I explained in detail everything that had happened that day. "All right, you may go home for today. We'll need to hear from your daughter's grandmother as well, so please inform her that we will be contacting her," the officer said. "I understand. I apologize for the trouble. Thank you for your help." Hours had passed since then. Aurora would probably be anxious when she woke up. I hurried to the hospital. Upon arriving, I went to see the doctor who had examined her. "Excuse me, where is my daughter?" I asked. "Your daughter was already taken home by her grandmother." "What? You're kidding, right?" I rushed home. On the way, I realized I had forgotten to contact Jasper, so I hastily called him. "What the hell did you do?" he shouted. "What do you mean?" "I heard you hit Aurora. Is that something a mother should do?" "Wait a minute. I'm coming home now. I'll explain everything." I hurried home. When I opened the door, Jasper was waiting in the entryway, standing imposingly. "You've got some nerve coming back here looking so unperturbed. How can you face Aurora?" "Wait, I think there's some misunderstanding, but I didn't do anything." "Stop spouting nonsense. I heard everything from my mother. You were taken in by the police, weren't you? That's because your mother is telling awful lies, trying to blame it on my mother. You're unbelievable." Then I heard my mother-in-law's voice from inside. "There's no place for you here anymore." "Does she intend to keep lying like this? I won't let her. You may not believe anything I say right now, but I think the truth will come to light before long. Can I stay here until then?" I asked. "What do you mean? The police will be coming here later. Let's clarify the truth with them present." At that, my mother-in-law hurriedly said, "I think I better go home for today," and headed for the door. Desperate to stop her, I blocked her way. Just then, the doorbell rang and the police arrived. The two officers, myself, my mother-in-law, and Jasper sat around the table. "We heard the full story from Aurora's mother earlier. It doesn't match what the grandmother told us, so we'd like to have the grandmother tell us about today's events once more," an officer said. "Like I said, it's just as I told you at the hospital. Nora hit Aurora on the head. Aurora collapsed, and then—" My mother-in-law desperately tried to concoct a story but ended up faltering and not making any sense. She couldn't properly answer the officer's questions and finally burst into tears. "Then let me confirm one last time. The one who harmed Aurora was not the mother, but the grandmother. Is that correct?" The officer's stern words made my mother-in-law could only nod. With this, the suspicion against me was finally completely cleared. If she tried to make things worse, I intended to sue her for assault. When I told her that, she clung to me, pleading, "Anything but that." I resolutely shook off her clinging hands. Then, with her head hanging, she was taken away by the police. Jasper was just as flustered. "Mom did it, saying she'd take care of her and then resorting to violence. That's the worst. You have no right to criticize your mother, Jasper. You're Aurora's father, right? Who was it that said to leave Aurora to them and then went off to hang out on their own?" "Oh, well, that, and you said whatever you liked without verifying the truth. Did you think I was that terrible of a mother?" "No, I just didn't think my mom would do something like that, so—" "So you thought I would? Enough. I can't be with you anymore. I want a divorce." "Hey, calm down. I'm not getting a divorce. Let me tell you. You're not qualified to be a father. And while we're at it, you're not qualified to be my husband either. Hurry up, pack your things, and get out." After that, as Aurora's guardian, I decided to sue my mother-in-law for assault for harming Aurora. She seems to have gotten off with just a fine, but I have no intention of ever forgiving her for trying to pin the crime on me. In the heat of the moment, I was able to properly collect enough alimony and child support from the two of them for Aurora and me to live on going forward. Since cutting ties with that foolish mother and son, peaceful days have continued for us.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. "Meetings should be for employees only." Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, what's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. "All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason." "What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do." "I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you." "Please." Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, "Yes. That's Nick for you." Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, "I'm very sorry." Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, "Get his boss here immediately." It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. "What is that idiot doing?" "All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next." Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. "If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you." I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room. One had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.